Jim, tell me, are you from here
No,
originally?
I was born and raised in Missouri.
Missouri. Okay, we'll ask how you got here later.
Long story.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But tell me about, were you drafted or did
No,
you
ma'am.
join?
I got out of high school and from a family of 8 kids and really couldn't afford to go to college. So I thought, well, they told me at the recruiting station that they'd send me to college if I signed up. So I was 17 years old when I signed up, and they were going to take me. And then they found out I was 17, so I had to go get mom and dad's permission, and that took a little persuasion, but got that done, and there I was.
17, wow. So where was high school? Where were you at that time?
Carrollton, Missouri. I just graduated from high school.
Okay.
And graduated in May and signed up on Halloween Day. I was inducted on Halloween Day in 1966, October 31st.
Okay. So then you're into
Fort,
Army?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then you're Fort.
Leonard Wood, Missouri,
Okay.
for basic training.
And what were you going to be assigned to do ultimately? What were you training
Well,
on?
when I signed up, I signed up to learn a trade as a mechanic. But then I did go from Fort Leonard Wood to, by the way, I got outstanding trainee there out of my company, so I was automatically promoted to E3, PFC E3. And then from there, I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, to learn how to make generators run and all that. And so I sort of taught my class again there, so I got another 8 weeks of school. So in that would be 67 July, I got sent to Fort Carson, Colorado. And I walked in there fresh out of school, and the first sergeant said, "Do you know how to type?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, you're the new company clerk." So I didn't get to use any of my training there, because I was the company clerk for about, I was there almost 18 months. I was there from July of 67 to, I went to Vietnam in September of 68. But then when I got there, well, to be a company clerk, I had to be E5, so they promoted me to E5.
And what did that make you? E5, I don't remember.
A specialist E5.
Okay.
Wasn't a buck sergeant then, but then when I got to Vietnam, I was attached to in Fort Carson. That was the 5th Infantry Division Mechanized. So that whole unit shipped out except for I thought I was going with them, and they left me there to clean up and fix up everything. And then they said, "Well, you'll be getting out before you go to Nam." Well, about 30 days later, I was on my way to Nam. So I got there, and then I was assigned to the 9th Infantry Division, mechanized in the maintenance department. So I kept all the tracks, trucks, Jeeps, everything. We were one little forward support company. There was 40 of us in it. And we'd go retrieve stuff that had been blowed up, bring it back, fix it, or just whatever we needed to do. So
how old were you when you actually set foot in Vietnam?
19.
19.
Still in my teens.
Yeah.
Still young.
You'd done a lot of stuff, but you were still in your teens.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you think of Vietnam? What first impressions?
You spend 40, 50 years now trying to forget all this stuff, and then all of a sudden they put me on this deal back here, and now I'm supposed to be on the Wall of Honor, and I tried to forget a lot of it, but because I wasn't right in the heaviest part of the fighting, but every place we went there had been or was, because stuff was messed up. But I really young enough and didn't really know all that much about it, so I just hated to see some of the way some of the people had been treated. That was, I always I was next to the oldest out of 8 kids, and I always had to help take care of the littler ones, plus work and whatever. So always sort of a soft spot, I guess. I just didn't like to see people hurt and mistreated and all, and that looked like a lot of that was going on over there. So. Are
you talking about the Vietnamese there, the
yes.
South Vietnamese?
I mean, some part of that you didn't know who was who. They tried to keep you messed up, a lot of it, but it's, I guess the French were over there first, and the Chinese, and I don't know who was first, but they was all different cultures, and I don't think, people just weren't free to, like we are here in the United States, to just go do whatever they wanted. Most of them lived in that young little old shack in a rice paddy where we were, and just a little further south to the to Dongtown, where our headquarters was that was all forest and timber and stuff there. But people just need to be treated a little better by their own government or whoever. We were trying to help out, but a lot of them liked it, but a lot of them didn't care for us. Didn't seem like, no matter what, unless you had a big pocket full of American money, they always liked that.
Yeah.
But that was not easy to get over there. But
what were the conditions for them like? I mean, in the villages, you talked about the huts, but
well, that's the little company that I was really in. It was like, say, there was 40 to 50 men there at any one given time, but we had armament. We fixed 105 howitzers, M16s, anything that broke or needed fixed, we could fix, except for helicopters. We didn't work on the helicopters, but got a lot of rides on them to go out to get stuff. But the people in the villages, they just, we didn't get to really associate with them, but you just see them, and they look pretty, I don't know, it's just, I don't know, it's weird.
So if you were out there going to pick up machinery that had been hit, you were kind of in the aftermath, seeing what happened.
Right.
What had happened before you. What was that like, going into these areas where the battle had been?
Well, a lot of them wasn't too pretty. There's still a lot of the other bodies, not the Americans, but there was other bodies laying around. A lot of times they hadn't got them picked up yet, and you could, you could take a what they call armored personnel carrier. It's with a hole all the way through it, the motor and the transmission and everything, and the driver's right here on the front of them. And anybody that was back in there just burned up. It had to have been a bad. But those you didn't fix. They weren't fixable. But they brought them back. And then I don't know what they did with all that stuff after. Somebody said they loaded on ships and pushed it off out in the ocean, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it wasn't real nice feeling out there. You sort of jumpy. You don't know if somebody's still there or not.
That's what I was going to say. Were you afraid of, booby traps or whatever?
Oh yeah, they were all over, and but we had 2 different retrieval vehicles, and one of them was just a M88. And that was the best thing about that, was it's 12-inch armor plated, and it was air conditioned. That's the only air conditioning we saw while I was over there, and it was nice to be able to ride in that for a while. But then when you got to the location, we pulled a lot of, they had these mortars in the back of these tracks, and they would get out in a rice paddy, and then they couldn't get out, so we'd have to take that out, and we would, takes 3 or 4 of us to get on the winch line, chain that big around, cable about that big, and we'd have to walk through the rice paddies out to
with the chain.
with the hope dragging the chain and cable out so that they could hook onto it and winch it back out. So we did some of that, and then like I say, there was always mud and water, and you never knew what you were stepping off into. But
Yeah, I guess that, and then the monsoons.
oh yes, that's in the rice paddies there. I can't remember a time when they weren't wet or full of water, but
How deep? I don't even know.
I was about this deep most time walking
Wow.
out there. Come out, a few little leeches on you and stuff, and that's something that used to give you the willies.
Gives me the willies right now.
But we always had plenty of when we went out, we always had a lot of cover. We carried a lot of weapons ourselves. I carried the M60 part of the time, and when I was on a Jeep, I had an M50. And we always had a bunch of just regular infantry with us, so we didn't have to worry about too much. I
Yeah.
mean, you could always get behind something.
You said you came in on helicopters. How did you
Part-
go get the stuff? And get everything there to bring these vehicles and things back.
Well, a lot of it, they'd get on a helicopter, go out, you knew what's wrong with it, you'd go fix it. But, take a few little parts or whatever. And we didn't do that. We didn't get very many rides on the helicopters, but most time is at night, and then you'd have to go clear the landing pad on your belly, and it's sort of...
Clear the landing pad on your belly.
Well, you had to walk out there and make sure nobody had set up some trip grenades or trip wires or anything. The only way to do it is get down and crawl at night and look and see if there was, so that helicopter could land. You didn't want it blowing up your helicopter, so it was, it was interesting.
Well, it was kind of hairy.
To
it
say
sounds
the
like.
least,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So what was the worst thing you ever had to haul back?
Probably one of those armored personnel carriers, APCs, that was almost blowed completely up. It just, those things they had, forget exactly what they called that round. It's like an incendiary round, and it hits, and then it just fries everything that's in there. It is not a pretty sight. And still nowadays, who knows why we were even over there?
What did you know about the war before you went?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. Didn't know why we were going. Didn't have a clue why. Still don't actually know. I hear all kinds of stories why we went and all, but I don't know which one to believe.
Which one do you think is?
I think it's all political. There's no doubt in my mind, because it wasn't actually a war, or they say it is, but hell, you couldn't, excuse my French, but you couldn't shoot first. You had to wait till you got shot at. That's what we were always told, so that never made a lot of sense, but oh well.
Yeah.
19 and a little half crazy to be there, I guess. So.
When were you most scared?
Oh, when our plane landed, when we were going over, we were on a Flying Tiger. It scared me. We had 4 tires blow out when we landed in Anchorage, Alaska, and the plane sort of skid down the runway. And so we laid in Anchorage, Alaska for 2 or 3 days there with jungle fatigues on, waiting for them to fix that plane so we could go on. But when that plane landed in, we landed in, I think it's Tonsanute Air Force Base or something there. It's the 90th Replacement Center or something. It was, hell, they were sending mortars in on top of us, and we didn't have a clue. It didn't even seem like the plane had stopped, and everybody was bailing out, and somebody was saying, over here, and then every time one of those mortars would go off, then you could see some guys over here in bunkers, you know, so we just, but that's probably the scariest that it was that first time. I mean, because, you know, I'd never been shot at before that I know of, but
Yeah.
it was, yeah, that's probably the scariest time. After that, you sort of got used to it, expected it, or,
How long did that last when you first got there?
oh, good gosh. When we first landed,
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember it seemed like forever, but I'm sure it lasted probably, you know, it didn't seem like they do it a whole lot. It just boom, 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 and then it was sort of over. I don't know if they just ran out of ammo or
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
it was, but I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. I don't know. Like I say, it seemed like forever, but
yeah. Then you think this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, you know, you think, oh my, and I signed up to do this. I volunteered to do this. And I thought, oh, my dad told me I was an idiot, so I guess maybe he was right. But anyhow, he wasn't too happy when I signed up to go, but anyhow, hey.
Did you lose anybody close to you while you were there?
No, I had one cousin that got, but it wasn't, we were complete different units, but he didn't get killed, but he got shot up and wounded pretty bad. There was nobody in our unit that whole year that I was there, but you know, people was rotating in and out, but there was, several got shot and wounded, but I don't remember anybody getting killed. So.
What area did you work in mostly?
Oh, we were south of Saigon, down in the Mekong Delta, and it was from Ben Luck south of Saigon, and then from there on down to Dong Tam. And I think a time or two we were even over in Cambodia and didn't know it, or we weren't supposed to be, but
Didn't know it or didn't tell it, huh?
you know, you couldn't read some of those maps, so you just.
Well, and it's not like you had roads. A lot of times you didn't have roads.
Oh no, well, there, you know, I was went over in '68 September and come back in '69, and you know it was pretty well developed. There were lots of roads back then. I mean, the ones that we could more or less date on, but you know, who knows? Couldn't read Vietnamese, so you don't know who said what.
What happened when you came back stateside?
I had really thought about making a career out of it before I went over there, but after I got back, my first son was born while I was over there. And I don't think my wife really wanted to go through that again, so I just got out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everybody was still talking about the baby killers and this, that, and something else, so I never told a soul that I was ever over there. You know, my family and the people at hometown knew, but when I got out, I came back and I went to work for Bell Helicopter at Fort Worth. And, you know, didn't know anybody when I went down there, so to speak of. So, you know, didn't worry about it. Just tried not to tell anybody and didn't. But now everybody wants to know and know what you did.
Did you encounter protesters?
I saw a lot of them, but like I say, I didn't, when I went to Fort Worth, I didn't tell anybody that I was ever over there or anything. So Few people knew it, but not many. But I saw a lot of protests, but I always tried to go the other way because I didn't want to be involved. I'd already done what I thought I was supposed to do, and a lot of them didn't. A lot of them went to Canada and who knows where. But
how do you put that all in perspective now, looking back at it?
Oh, Lord of mercy. As far as the
controversy, the differences that people had over this war.
Well, it's before I went over there, I didn't see anything on TV, or you didn't hear much on radio like from the last 3 or 4, Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that. I mean, it's on TV constantly. There's people taking pictures. There's reporters and stuff right in there. And we had a few reporters that would come through every once in a while, but I didn't see a continuous, show of whatever. But until we got back, I didn't know people were protesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just another deal where it looked like a bunch of, turn around for a minute. You're okay though. But, I didn't know if it was just a bunch of long-haired hippies that was out smoking a little dope or what that was raising all the cane. But, I don't know. It's just the way life is, I guess. But like I say, before I went over, I didn't have a clue what was going on because I didn't know.
Yeah. How do you look back at that now, and what do you think of the people that protested?
Well, like I say, it depends on why, or if they really knew what they were protesting about, or just because they saw one little bad news caption where a bunch of kids had got shot or bombed or whatever. I don't know why they were doing it, other than maybe, it only takes one person to start something, and he, gets this one involved and that one involved, and then it just blows up.
Well, you're right, the media coverage is different today, but it was different then than any other war we'd ever seen, because we did it, they had television reporters on the ground and reported body counts at the end of the day, things like that.
Well, we had a newspaper called the Stars and Stripes, and I forget how often that come out over there, but we'd get a copy of it, and it would give the body count, and the 9th Infantry was one of the few that had stayed in the Delta, and we had more kills supposedly but I could never say that I actually killed anybody, but I helped because I kept their machines running and stuff so that they could go do their job. So, but as far as just saying I shot 37 people, I can't tell you that. I don't know. But I did use my M16 several times, but whether, don't want to know.
Yeah, you were that person, huh?
So,
have you been to the Vietnam Memorial Wall in D.C.?
yes, ma'am. I was fortunate enough to, Rick and Danny Miller and myself got picked to go over there. We went over in 2015, I think, 3 years ago, or 2 years ago.
What was that like?
It was, well, from the time we landed over there and got on the bus, off and on, rained on us the whole time, and being the big softy that I am, I looked at one, I think it was old Rick. I said, Rick, I said, I'm glad it's raining. And he said, why is that? I said, you can't tell that I'm crying. Because most of the time I spend in tears.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Sure.
or talk to Karen. So Della has invited you to be
Thank you.
on the honor wall.
Yes.
here. That must mean something to you. Why were you chosen? Tell Karen why you were chosen and what that means to you. Talk to Karen.
Well, it's quite an honor, and I know that there's a lot of people that probably deserve to be up there a lot more than I do, but I just thank the Lord that every day that I got back in one piece and not totally bonkers. So they keep telling me I have PSTD and all that, but from all this, and so anyhow, I get a little disability from that, and loss of hearing and all that. So, but yeah, it'd be an honor to be up there with some of these guys, or all these guys. They've all deserved it, I'm sure.
Right.
So,
Right.
but
It's
like I say, I
fantastic.
don't know why I am, but
You know, everybody I've talked to said, I'm not the hero, somebody else is the hero.
yeah, that's somebody got to be. But I suppose there's a lot of them. There's some heroes up there. I got a Bronze Star and an Army Commendation Medal while I was there, but I didn't get one of them Purple Hearts, thank goodness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that did, and they suffer daily from their wounds still, and that's a lot of them 17, 18 years old when they were over there, and a lot of them didn't come home, and that's your heroes right there, the ones that didn't come home alive, so.
We talk a lot about how, we watch history and all that, but we don't know the history of the Vietnam War very well. What do people need to know that they don't?
Good Lord, never have been asked that question before. I don't really, what do they need to know that they don't know? I don't know that I can answer that. I just,
What did you did a lot of growing up, you said over there. What did you take away from that experience?
it was, I don't know, my wife said it made me a grouchy old fart. But I don't think I thought I was better off for it, because then you know what the world's all about, or a lot of what it's about. Still don't know what it's all about, but it's something else.
You and me both. I don't know what it's about either. How'd you wind up in Pampa?
Well, when I was in Fort Carson, Colorado, met a lady that lived in Pampa, and she was going to Pikes Peak Institute of Medical Technology. And I seen her at the USO a couple times and asked her for a date one night, and we went to shows and we do this and do that, go dancing, and then when they told me that I probably wouldn't go to Nam, I said, well, we might as well get married. So got married, and her folks lived here in Pampa. So when we come back out, she had a brother that worked, or brother-in-law that worked for Bell Helicopter, and he got me on down there. But by then, the war was sort of winding down, and they weren't making near as many helicopters. So I was there about a year or so and got laid off. I mean, they just started laying people off. Last one hired, first one to, And she had family here, an uncle. All of her kinfolks pretty much lived here. And he was like 94 years old. And Fort Worth was awful big for an old country boy like me. When in Missouri, there was 3,400 people, something like that. And I hadn't been in but 2 or 3 counties before I ever left there. And then I saw half the world, it seems like. But anyhow, I farmed when I was a kid, and her uncle, 94 years old, and he was getting feeble, and he wanted me to come up here and run his farm. So I thought that's a whole lot better than Fort Worth. Fort Worth's just too big for old country boy like me. So been here since 1972.
Okay. Well,
So
we want to keep you. And thank you for your service.
well, thank you.